pretty easy, didn't it? And actually, it was. All it took was about 5 minutes every day with this filly, and I didn't even have a single fight. So I'll show you in this video the 4 steps that I take, and it's probably overkill for most foals, but I find that if my method works for my really sensitive and reactive warm bloods, it probably works for all foals. And honestly, I think this is probably the most important lesson you can teach your foal, and it's probably not why you think so. Anyway, more about that later. Okay, so at this point I have a young foal that is comfortable being approached and touched and that has no issue with the halter at all, but that also has no clue what it's for. If you want to know how we got here, go take a look at my 2 previous videos on this. The links will be down in the descriptions. I like to break down my training in a series of little steps, and that is why my method has 4 steps rather than 1. The first thing I do is teach the foal how to respond to pressure on its nose. It's the first time I ask it to do anything for me, so I picked this particular approach because it's super easy for the foal to understand and really hard for me to screw it up. I put my hand on their nose and I push a bit. I'm looking for any movement backward. A step is nice, but even just rocking back is great. The moment I feel like they're backing away from the contact, I just remove my hand. It's really as simple as that. I first do it with my hand, and eventually I do it with the halter. Once they respond pretty reliably to this, I move on to step 2. You see, training a horse at any age is really like eating an elephant. You take a small bite, and the next thing you know, you're already at the Olympics. The other little step that I like to teach them is how to follow the pressure on the halter. By now, they usually follow me because they want attention. So I combine that with a gentle tension on the halter to teach them what it means. The moment they step forward or sideways, I drop the contact. I do this for 5 minutes every day, about 10 reps as part of my normal routine, and after just a few days, really, they get it. Now, I find that they're usually okay to follow me this way when I'm facing them, but the moment I turn around and try to have them come with me, they stop and they balk. They get all confused, and that's why I do step 3. As odd as it might seem to us, or anybody used to trained and handled horses, it can feel weird and maybe even threatening for a foal to have another presence right beside them as they try to move. This is when I use the figure 8 as a training tool. I use it to safely move any young foal that is not yet halter broke. Here is how I loop mine. I use an extra long lead shank, I cross it over the wither, behind her butt, back across the wither, and back to the halter. And because you never know, I strongly recommend putting on gloves whenever you're going to be holding that lead shank. Now, what I do is that once I have the figure 8 on them, I just ask them to walk and I follow them. At first, I let them decide where, and I just follow along. When they stop, I stop right at their wither. If they back up, I keep up with them, and then I encourage them to walk forward again. I match their rhythm. Do this until it's not a big deal for the foal. You will find that at this point you can walk forward and it will follow you on a loose lead. It should be comfortable, almost like a very companionable walk. If we were to make a parallel, say, between teaching foals to lead and kids to read, step 1 to 3 were really about learning the alphabets and basic phonics. Naturally, the next step will be the equivalent of starting to read, the idea being that it's time to challenge the foals to do something a bit more difficult, but based on what they've learned so far. We're going to ask the foals to solve a puzzle of sort, a simple one, of course, to start. I'm going to ask them to walk over some poles on the ground. We can see here that the foal is clearly struggling with this particular exercise. I've edited for time, but I did give the foal a few minutes to think about the situation in between each ask. We humans generally move too fast and we ask too quickly. Over time, of course, most horses learn our ways, but with foals or with unhandled horses, it's important to remember this. Speed is generally a cause for alarm in the wild, so take the time and slow everything down. When the first pole, which was raised a bit, proved to be too hard, I simply moved on to the other one that was flat on the ground. As you can see, something clicked and she solved the problem in front of her. As you probably figured out, this is not really about the pole on the ground. This is about the foal learning to find a solution. In their mind, when there is a conflict between what's being asked and what they perceived as being safe and comfortable, they will explore possible solutions. This step in the training is so important because it lays down the foundation for problem solving. Every new challenge you will present them with will be an opportunity to learn how to approach these new situations. That is why it's such a critical lesson. It's not about stepping on a platform or into a trailer, but rather how the foal is handled as it figures out what to do. This is why an experienced horse trainer would rather have an untouched foal than one that was badly handled. If a foal has learned to approach new questions and situations in a calm way, if it has not been overfaced, but rather allowed to try things and progress in as many little steps as needed, then it will be so much easier to train and handle down the road. They will have learned the most important lesson of all: how to handle pressure, how to find a desired solution. Simply put, how to learn. Because every foal is different, it's important to consider their temperament in our training as well as our expectation. But how much of their temperament as foal will impact how they are as adult? You can find out in this next video. If I'm pointing at nothing, it's because it hasn't been uploaded yet and I'm still working on it. It might be a good time to hit subscribe, hit that bell, that way you will get notified when it is finally uploaded. Thank you so much for watching.